So I finished Knife of Dreams, and is it one of Jordan's best? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say absolutely. Now I might only think that because the previous book was very dull and really didn't have a huge amount happening. However, I even believe that without that book before, this one would still be a classic. So what I'm covering here is the last 200 pages or so of Knife of Dreams. Let's hop into it. So we rejoin Rand and his gang, and they're going to meet what he thinks is the daughter of the Nine Moons, when obviously it turns out to be Semirhage. And Rand loses a hand and or an arm, and what happens is he's really down for the count. Semirhage essentially puts him out of action, but the consortium of Asherman, Aes Sedai, and just general badasses that he brought with him managed to capture Semirhage and the Daman who are with her. The reason this scene was, I think, really powerful is because every time Rand has faced one of the Chosen, he's mostly done it on his own, and it's mostly been a really big struggle. It's been a back and forth, and it looks like he's going to lose. This time round, although he arguably sustained one of the biggest injuries that we've seen Rand have, it was quite simple. And the reason for that is because finally, he trusts other people to help him. One thing that is interesting from this scene as well is Semirhage lets on and tells everybody that Rand is getting loose therein inside of his head, and people are shocked by that. I think people already knew. Tuon mentioned it before, but for sure it's definitely going to shock the people around him, and I think those who are linked to him, like Min, like Avienda and Elaine, probably going to have some deeper questions about that. So is this the end for Semirhage? I really don't think so. I think one of two things will happen. She either escapes, but my money's not on that, or I think she probably gives up some incredible information. And I would love to be a fly on the wall, and I hope we get the perspective of her being questioned by people such as Tuon. I would pay good money to read those scenes. What kind of info could we get from Semirhage? I mean, what couldn't we get? I'd imagine it's a lot on Moradin and the other Chosen and Forsaken, and maybe even some info from the Dark One. And most excitingly, it might be something that is like new magic, like traveling and healing and those types of things that they learned when they had Morgedion under wraps. And then we briefly shoot back to Matt and his storyline, and these brand new crossbows are giving Matt even more of an edge, and he doesn't really need one because of the battle experience he has from his memories. So we jump in on a scene with them completely destroying the Sean-Chan armies. And this is one of my favorite things to read about. So I obviously love all of the magic and the lore and the intrigue and learning different languages and currency, but something that I really enjoy reading about is a commander whose followers absolutely trust him or her, and it's normally just because they have thought of everything, they're willing to put everything on the line for them, and they're just so damn good at their job that they are trusted 100%. And Matt has that, and fair enough, because he has the battle tactics and knowledge and experience from probably at least 100 previous commanders, probably some of the most successful ones ever. And the most beautiful thing is we can see him in real time winning Tuon's respect from his abilities. And then we jump from Matt's ability to command and confuse and confuddle his opponents into defeat, into another feat of battle engineering, and this time from Perrin and all of his team that go to attack the Shaido Aiel. And I mentioned this briefly last time, the Aiel are some of the coolest characters in the entirety of the story. And when we first meet them in book 4, I think it is, they are so far ahead of every other nation when it comes to war, knowing what is right and what's wrong, what to focus on, what's important, what isn't, the kind of morals and ethics of life. They seem a lot more monk-like, just to throw out a comparison. And basically what I think happens to these Shaido Aiel is they lose all of that. They lose their belief system, they lose their morals, they lose so much. And I think that is what allows them to be defeated. They essentially defeat themselves with a lack of discipline. Having said that, the combination of Wolves, Aes Sedai, Daman, Sean-Chan, Two Rivers, a good Two Rivers longbow, and a few other things, you know, really the odds were stacked against them as well. Plus, how many Gaishan they had there. Come on, that's always a mistake to outnumber your own troops with servants. But we do get a sad side story, and we get a sad story of Aram, the boy who was a tinker, who then turned to essentially Faile's like bodyguard, and Perrin's admirer, and then was poisoned by Masema. And I was thinking about this, and I think it's really important. With Aram, he essentially gave up all of his beliefs, similar to the Aiel, but he gave up and turned his back on all of his beliefs, and that really like rocks your core as a character, but also as a person as well. Like if you lose some of the core beliefs that you've held for a really long time, it's an unsteady period of life, and what happens is you then look for new beliefs to put in there. You can't just be a human walking around with no beliefs at all. And what that means is that you're quite susceptible to power figures, to people who seem to have it all figured out, who are very confident, who are very certain of their beliefs and where they're going. And because you have this lack of beliefs, you're more than ready to pick up these new beliefs that they're putting down and accept them really, really quickly, because you need some beliefs. And unfortunately, this is what happened to Aram. He let Masema whisper into his ear, and Masema is a terrible character with regards to what he's about and what he gets up to, but he's extremely certain about what he's doing and why he's doing it. And really, humans, it's all a confidence game. We follow people who are certain about what they're saying and what they're doing, because that level of certainty, we believe, means that they must be right, when really that's just massively flawed thinking. And I don't mean to get too philosophical, but I think Aram was a victim of giving up his beliefs. But anyway, after that TED talk by myself, we move back to Faile and Galina, and the most predictable thing in the world happens. I really feel like this came out of desperation. Faile and Morghese, they're just desperate, and they really want Galina's help, and they need Galina's help, and they've been in this camp for like 55 days or something, and then they enter a shack that's ready to fall down and allow her, Galina, to walk upstairs or away with the only thing tying her to them, and then predictably the house falls down. But of course, Galina gets her comeuppance. It all turns out okay for that group of people, and then Galina honestly gets a fate worse than death. And do I like Galina? Absolutely not. But do I feel for her and having to spend the rest of her life as Thoreva's plaything? Yes. And in my last video, was it the last video? Maybe. I was asking people, listen, do you think that this series needs more deaths? And, you know, the jury's out. I personally think maybe 1 or 2 would be useful. But what Robert Jordan does really well is this. He essentially puts in things that are worse than death. So would Galina have rather died? 100%. And that's something beautiful that Robert Jordan does. He makes the stakes higher than death, especially because you can die and then come back as well. Death in this world isn't even the biggest problem that people face. So, you know, hats off to Robert Jordan. And then we go all the way back to Caemlyn. And I have to say, Caemlyn's storyline has been really slow. And what happens is, essentially, Elaine discovers where the Dark Friends are, and she decides to go with 3 sisters and her, even though there's hundreds of the kin, by the way, in the castle in Caemlyn. And she decides to go knowing there's going to be a minimum of 3 of these bad guys. And she's going to go with 3 people, one of whom she is certain is a Dark Friend anyway. And although she had a good plan of making them all linked so she could control it and it wouldn't matter if they're a Dark Friend, if literally anybody else was at that meeting that she didn't know about, then all of a sudden the odds would be evened and it would be 4-4. So, like, it was just a bad plan. And then what happens is, unfortunately, it is unlucky. You know, the rest of the Black Aja, who we've been hunting for, like, since book 3, is there. And they managed to capture Elaine. Why didn't she just take, like, 30 of the kin and go in there? I know surprise was important, but damn, it just seems like a really bad plan. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. It just seemed like a bad plan. Especially after reading the proficiency of Matt and Perrin with regards to, and not so much Rand, but, you know, Rand had a really good team around him. Literally the last 3 storylines that we touched on, they all had such good and effective battle plans. And I know Elaine is pregnant with twins and she doesn't have, you know, the memories of Matt or the experience of Perrin when it comes to battles now, or the friends around him that Rand has. It still seems like that was a terrible plan. I couldn't believe, when I was reading it, I was like, there's no way this is going to go right. And obviously it doesn't. But anyway, Bridget saves the day, and the Windfinders finally do something good. Those characters have been frustrating me the entire time. So I don't think Elaine really won this storyline. I think Bridget really saved her on this storyline. It all kind of just slotted into place for her at the end. Does she negotiate the other heads of houses quite effectively? She does, and hats off to her, you know. But yeah, overall, Bridget is the MVP of this storyline, considering how the ending went. Sorry, all you Elaine fans. I just think, you know, she made some bad choices and the storyline's been slow as well. I'm sure she'll redeem herself. So what now for that storyline? Well, there's a few things. The Black Tower is still just outside of Caemlyn, and that is going to be a big problem. We'll touch on that in a minute. Do we get to see the twins being born during this next book? I don't know. Hopefully. Do we even get the twins being born before the final battle? Also, again, obviously I don't know, but I would like to see that happen. I'm sure the next step for her is consolidation, and then really making sure that she is taking the kin and the other Aes Sedai that are still there, if there's any, and making sure that they go to back Egwene. And information, we have all of those Black Aja who have been captured now. That amount of information is going to be so useful if they can put them to the question effectively. But it does make me nervous that so many of them are trapped together. I just feel like the more people you have as prisoners, especially those that can channel, I just feel like you're going to have problems. So maybe I'm predicting that there's going to be a breakout from that group of people. And then it happens. We jump back to Mat and Tuon. And they get married. And we all knew it was going to happen. But it's still just as exciting as if, I don't know, as if it was a surprise. Because I had no idea when she was going to finally do it. So I assume in the next book we get the meeting between Rand and Tuon. I think that would be really cool. And I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. And one thing I'm really looking forward to is I cannot wait for everybody who hasn't been involved in Mat's storyline to find out that he is now the Prince of the Ravens. He is your Highness or your Lord or your Honor. I think it's Highness that they call them. And they're going to be so bamboozled. They're going to be like, how on earth? Most of our characters who last were with Mat saw him like trapped under a wall. And they had to leave him over there. And now he's like, but almost as powerful as the Empress. I would guess he's just one step down. That is mental. Could you imagine that? And they already know he's lucky, so they're going to think his luck knows no bounds. And then in our final scene, we get a scene with Mazrim Taim, and essentially he throws out a quote, and his quote is, "Let the Lord of Chaos reign." And as far as I've been led to believe, the Lord of Chaos is obviously the Dark One, right? So I believe that that is the confirmation that Mazrim Taim is a Dark Friend. And obviously that's terrible news, because we've been working so hard to eradicate the Black Aja, and now we have, I think it was like at least 100 men there. And if they're all Dark Friends as well, then we have a big problem, because they were essentially just bred for battle. So yeah, I think Rand have really dropped the ball by not addressing this Mazrim Taim problem so much earlier. So what is my question for you? Well, my question is for you, although there wasn't a ton of brand new stuff introduced right at the end, there is so much that I'm excited for this next book. So my question for you is, if you can remember when you finished this book, which of these following things were you most excited about when it came to you picking up book 12? So first of all, we have Mazrim Taim's eventual mutiny and the battle that ensues after that. Then we have Eleda and Egwene's meeting. I'm so fired up for that meeting. That is going to be incredible. We have Moradin's next steps. We don't really know exactly what he's going to do or how he's going to do it, but obviously he's cooking something up. We're coming to the business end of this story now. And then we have the seals being broken. Now, I don't know if the seals were broken, but there is nothing else that I could imagine would have that impact on everybody. And there were several different descriptions in every storyline of like time kind of like freezing and everyone blurring, and it happened 3 times. And I know there's 3 seals left, I believe anyway. So my guess is, I thought long and hard, there's nothing else that makes sense other than the 3 seals got broken by somebody. Or were you more excited for Rand meets Tuon and that interaction? The Towers of Genji? Or the inevitable discovery in Herod Fell's books? And I'll tell you which ones I'm most excited about. The mysteries. So number 1, the Towers of Genji. Like, that storyline holds, I feel like, the key to understanding so much about the pattern and just how this entire system works. I just feel like it's the key to everything. So I'm so excited to the Towers of Genji. I know for a fact that regardless of what time it is, when I get to the section that attacks that storyline, there will be no sleep, there will be no rest. I will power through all of that in one go. I know it for a fact. It's going to ruin my sleeping schedule. Then a close second is understanding what those 3 jumps in time were, or like pauses in time. I believe it's the seals being broken, but really figuring that out and knowing the consequences of that has intrigued me a lot as well. And when it comes to the most exciting thing, battles are really fun, but it's mystery. It's always mystery. It's discovering secrets and understanding things about the world, the magic system, the people, the lore, the different races and different types of beings inside of these worlds. Like the mystery unraveling is really what keeps me hooked in fantasy, and I just can't wait for this next book. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I can't wait to see you on the next video. Have a great day.